Yeah, so I'm emailing everybody.
Can I just hang on, just
okay. We are live, and I have shared the Hangout link on our Twitter account as well. Did you see the tweet?
Yeah, I'll retweet that.
Great. All right. So we'll wait for 5 minutes or so for people to join. All right. For the people who are already here, we're just waiting for more people to join. So please ask questions. You can put it on the Q&A module. All right, let's go ahead and get started then. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to get another webinar from us. Last month, we took a break because we actually have an in-person workshop in Denver, but we are back. And I'm going to have Kate take over, actually, because I'm not 100% sure how we're doing it this time.
That's a nice one to drop on me, Chuki. So we're really excited to welcome Caroline Goyder. She had a book in our 6-month anniversary giveaway that was super popular, and so obviously not all of you could win the book, but you can all come to the webinar. And Logitech have generously sponsored this, so Olivia is going to I don't know, talk about Logitech for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get going. Just a reminder, start putting your questions in the Q&A module, because we love it when these things are driven by audience questions. So put Caroline on the spot. She is an expert, and she is ready for anything. Olivia?
Outstanding. I'm Olivia Shen-Green from Logitech. I'm originally a classically trained engineer. Now I'm in people and culture here at Logitech, and we're most famous for our mice and our keyboards, but we're also known for our Logitech Harmony remotes. For those of you who are looking to enable your smart home, light bulbs, your door lock, etc. This is a great product that we also make. And we also do a bunch of mobility products, like our iPad cases and keyboards. And we also have a brand called Ultimate Ears, and we're most known for our wireless speakers through Ultimate Ears. It's a great culture. It's a large company with a small company feel, and we are hiring. So go to logitech.com, click on careers. We're looking for software engineers, firmware engineers, hardware, design, UX folks, you name it. Reach out, take a look at the website, and you can at me on Twitter at OSGOlivia.
Thanks, Olivia, and thank you so much for sponsoring. Great use of props, by the way. Caroline is also an expert in props. She had this beautiful prop in her TED Talk that was fabulous. So maybe she'll talk a little bit about that, but we'll just let Caroline get going. You can tweet at Chuki, at me, at TechSpeak Digest, or you can use the QA module. We're like listening. So just let us know what you want to hear about today.
So one thing that noticed already, that's not really a question, but Kara kindly remind us that for people who have never used the Q&A module, the way that you enable that is you click on the 9-box icon on the top next to the help icon, so that people can actually find the Q&A module and ask us questions. Thank you so much. So Caroline, why don't you take over now?
Great. So I thank you, Kate Chiku. That was brilliant, and I would second that in that I would love the audience to ask questions. So once everybody knows how to use that, it would be great to see some questions pop up. So a little bit about what I do. I'm strictly speaking a voice coach. I worked for a long time with actors in drama schools, and then I worked out that actually what I was teaching actors was really useful to people who were struggling with meetings or having to do scary presentations, or, you know, particularly walk into meetings where the environment's very aggressive or very critical. And some of the skills that actors have to walk out on stage and feel calm and confident are really useful in those kind of environments. And I spend quite a lot of time working with a big telecom in the UK who have a lot of experienced engineers who really struggle, particularly in quite a male environment, but also in an environment that can be quite critical of innovation. And so I spend quite a lot of time working with them on really how they show up, their presence, their calm, their confidence, and really how you speak up when you really don't feel like it, or when you're feeling criticized or nervous. So any questions around that would be really useful. If not, what I can do is really start to talk about some of the core principles that I teach those kind of audiences.
Okay, so I'll start with a question. So what's your best tip for feeling nervous kind of in the day before the meeting, an hour before the meeting, whilst it's happening in the moment?
So we get nervous because we often visualize what could go wrong. So the thing that I hear people say a lot is, I don't like preparing because I get nervous. I'm worried that I'll mess up if I prepare. So I just like showing up and just seeing what happens. And that's actually a really dangerous thing to do. It's much better to take a bit of time to think about what your audience wants from you, what they're hoping for, what they're fearing, and what is the one thing that you need to say in that meeting. And I think the strategy that helps people actually get to rehearsal is to visualize how you want the meeting to be. So rather than visualizing how it could go wrong, all the horrible questions they could ask you, whether you stumble over your words, if you feel embarrassed about something, don't do the horror movie. Do the movie of how you want it to be. And spend a bit of time thinking about, in my ideal movie, what will this look like? And then work towards that. But I personally think it's really important to spend a bit of time just putting yourself in the audience's shoes and really thinking about them and their take on what you're going to be talking about, because that's the starting point that's going to be most interesting.
Yeah, that's great, because that's something that we share. I feel like every month in Technically Speaking, we share something that says, think about your audience, imagine what they need. So I guess that's a way that we can take like the things we use to prepare talks and like help us feel better prepping for meetings as well.
And
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, one of the things in particular that's really useful to think about is what their fear is. What's the worry for this audience? And actually, the actor in me says, really step into their shoes, sit almost in their chair and think about, as you walk into the room, what are they really hoping for? What's their worry? And the more you can I actually get clients to be the person they're going to be talking to and talk as so to step into their shoes that much. And you realize that sometimes the way you see things is really not the way they're seeing it, and it can really unlock often critical, difficult behavior and allow you to be much more influential. So really spend a bit of time sitting in your audience's shoes.
That's super interesting. I can totally think of a scenario to use that for. So people ask questions. We have Caroline here to answer them. And you know how it always goes is people are very quiet at the beginning, and then Chuki and I make up questions or to think of real questions, and then at the end of it we run out of time. So like, get your question in early. It's much more likely to be answered.
Maybe people are doing teleconferences. I'll do a lot of work with people on that, so skills for that. Or if you've got a conference speech coming up that you want a bit of help with, if you feel nervous about specific things, if you want more influence in tricky situations, that's all the kind of stuff. Or even voice stuff, actually. If you want a more powerful voice or clearer speech, that's all the kind of stuff I cover. And pictures as well.
And that's the kind of thing you talked about in your TED talk, right?
Absolutely. That was really about speaking with confidence. And I was coached by the fantastic Denise Graveline, who I know has been a speaker on this as well, hasn't she? And
we love Denise, and she was our sponsor in this week's issue as well, which was great.
She rocks. And she was phenomenally helpful because I was doing a talk about speaking, which is quite meta, even for TED, and quite scary. And so I can see a question from Cara. I've been thinking about visualization as mental rehearsal, and I realize when I'm visualizing from outside myself as though watching a movie. Does first person matter? So in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, what they say is, first of all, make the movie from outside yourself and see it clearly and make it really compelling and really bright and really colorful so you feel great. And think about what you see and what you hear, and then, which is the next step in your question, step into the movie and wrap it around you like a big coat and feel what that feels like to be in that moment. So that's a really great question, and it's good to do first visual from outside and then to really step into it and feel it as well. Does that help?
I think so. Okay, we have a question from Olivia. Thanks, Olivia. Can you talk about uptorque, the upward lilt that makes a sentence sound like a question? I've heard that it can actually be effective in some circumstances.
So yeah, there's a whole kind of big thing about uptalk and also about vocal fry, which is something slightly different. And there's a lot of criticism, particularly of women's speech around it. Well, men do it as well, so we can park that one. I mean, I'm talking from a kind of a UK side of this. In the UK, there are lots of accents with uptalk in the accent, and in the US, there are lots of accents with some uptalk within the accent. The thing to remember when your voice goes up at the end of a line, if you say something and you kind of rise in intonation, that it can sound like a question, as you say. So you've got to know your audience. If your audience are senior, old school male, they may read that as uncertainty. But if they're a bit hipper, a bit younger, if it's more informal, they probably will be absolutely fine with it. But when you go and present to the board, make sure as much as possible that you eliminate uptalk where you're stating a fact. If you're asking a question, it's great, but where you need to sound really factual, going up at the end of the line and asking a kind of vocal question can just indicate a bit of uncertainty. So I always say to people, act like a newsreader. If you really need to pitch something or sound formal, think about how newsreaders go down at the end of the line. Here is the news. So uptalk is fine, but know your context, and where it's formal, make sure that you eliminate it where you're talking about facts.
Cool, thank you. I think it's one of those things that, like, you're right, men do it too. But like for women, if we know it's going to be used against us, maybe we just sometimes get rid of it in order to kind of project this more powerful stance. And like we don't have to, we can just play the game while still kind of not buying into it.
Exactly. It's good to be aware of all of the nuances.
So Olivia had a follow-up question, which is some more detail around the principles that you mentioned.
So the broad principles around gravitas, I'm taking that to mean, are those the right principles?
Yeah,
Olivia?
I think so. I think also I want you to talk about, what is it, bum on seat, feet on floor.
Oh, okay. So let's talk around principles of gravitas. So in a real nutshell, I was asked to run a training course for this great UK telecom on gravitas, and I thought, well, I kind of know what it means, but I don't know enough, so I researched it, and then that became the book Gravitas. Broadly, the principles around gravitas that I came up with are, firstly, that gravitas is a lot about being grounded, a lot about being true to yourself, very present. And it works really well with the idea of gravity, because gravity has an upward force and a downward force. And people with gravitas, whether it's Oprah or Obama or Angela Merkel, all of those kinds of people, they have a groundedness, but they also have a lightness. If you can find that seriousness and that warmth, that strength, that warmth, then you start to have a gravitas that's all yours, that no one can copy. And to Kate's question, so feet on floor, bum on chair is a good way to find your gravitas, your groundedness in a meeting that's going badly, for example. So right now I'm just thinking, as I go into my FOF book, I'm thinking feet on floor, bottom on chair. And as I do that, imagine if I'm sitting in a meeting where there's lots of criticism or people are getting a bit stressed out, it brings me back to the ground. It brings me back to being present. And that instantly gives me more presence. And it calms me. It says to my state, they're not going to attack you, because they aren't going to attack you, but your brain might be getting that message. So FOF is a really great way to bring yourself back to a calm, grounded state. I hope that helps.
I think that was my favorite tip in your book. I was like, how often am I not in the moment? I'm just like, okay.
Problem, isn't it? It speeds us up, so it's really good to come back to the ground.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, so we have a question, and it was, when I get nervous speaking, I tend to start speaking quickly. what are some suggestions for calming and slowing down when I'm in the moment?
Oh, great question. Okay, so that speaks very much to what we've just been saying, which is that, the speed of all our tech is fast, isn't it? And speaking is different. Now, I think in the UK we speak slightly slower than in the US, so bear that in mind. But however fast you're speaking, what you need to get the control back is you need a full stop at the end of each sentence. And we know that in writing, but we forget it in speech. So what happens in speech most of the time is that people just keep talking and they don't really stop, and then they kind of top up with a breath, and then it becomes this kind of runaway train of speech, which is quite dizzying for you as the speaker, and you're not getting enough oxygen. So because voice is out breath, whenever we speak, that's out breath. When you speak, get to the end of a sentence, close your mouth, and breathe in. Now, you're not going to do it for that long, clearly, but it's the idea that everything you say has a little full stop and then the next idea. And that full stop makes you, rather than being like this runaway train that is steaming down the hill and going past all the stations, it means that you're stopping and making that point clearly before you move on to the next point. That does two things. It helps you gather your thoughts, which is obviously going to be powerful, and it also helps your listeners hear what you've just said. So, top tip for slowing down is when you get to the end of a sentence, close mouth and breathe.
That's awesome. I've kind of embraced drinking water throughout my talk as a way to like make myself pause, because like if I tried to keep speaking, I would choke and die on stage, which would be pretty unfortunate. I feel like it would ruin a conference.
Dramatic.
Yeah, someone gave me that tip too, to bring a bottle of water and make sure you finish by the end.
Yeah,
so I can see the water bottle going down. It's like, oh, I'm almost done and there's still a lot. So let me stop and drink some and then reset. Because otherwise just keep going faster and faster. So once I drink, then I remember, I have to be slow.
That's a lovely idea, because it's really bringing you back to presence, isn't it? So anything that allows you to stop and think and connect to yourself is going to really add something as a speaker. I suppose what people often then say is, but I get interrupted. So in a meeting, if I pause, I get interrupted. And there's a trick for that. If you pause and freeze your hand gesture, so if you're talking and you stop, but you hold up the hand gesture, then it tells people that you haven't finished. So
that is a sneaky trick. I love it.
Sneaky but good.
Okay, so our next question is, do you have any tips for rehearsing a conference talk, recording, presenting in front of a mirror, etc.?
Oh, okay, great question. So all of those things are good. So I am doing a talk on October the 6th, which is quite a fairly big deal. Richard Branson is speaking 3 days before me at this thing. So no pressure. He's got a much bigger audience. So my strategy for preparing that talk is I started to think about it really quite a long time ago, not in a very detailed way, but just kind of dreaming up how I wanted it to be. And that can happen for months ahead. And then about 3 weeks ago, I started to mind map it. You can there are two ways to go. Create a really colourful mind map and whack it on your wall and look at it, or take post-it notes and put the big ideas on separate bright coloured post-it notes and put them on your wall. And then just think about the big ideas and be kind of practicing and moving them around. And at that point, once I've got a sense of my core pillars, then I will start to script it. But I know that I'm not going to stay on the script for very long, because as you said in your question, really the next thing you need to definitely start doing at least a month before is speaking it. My favourite tool is this, because personally I have practiced in a mirror and I have videoed myself, and I will have someone video me before I do it, but it's much gentler just to record your voice when you start. So just take sections of your talk, from your mind map, from your post-its, and start speaking it, listen to it in sections and really hear what works and hear what doesn't. And by the time you've recorded it and listened to it 3 or 4 times, you've actually got a really good sense of the bones of your talk. And at that point, yeah, it's really good to get someone to film you, to do a run through in front of a supportive friend who can also give you a little bit of kind of tough love if needed. And if you've done all of that, if you've mind mapped it, you've audio recorded it, you've probably videoed yourself, you've had someone watch it, then you are really ready to go by that point. And you will be calm and confident on stage. So yeah, great question.
That's great. I think there's I don't know, maybe I'm imagining things in that question, but like I'd say you shouldn't be obsessing about how to perfectly practice your talk rather than practicing it. Like just practicing it at all is like really step one. Caroline, that's a very extreme practicing regimen that I aspire to now. Yeah, okay, so next question we have from Cara. What do you recommend for becoming aware of your vocal habits? For example, uptalk. Listen to recordings of yourself with friends to help. How do you untrain yourself? It's a good question because I realized I just keep saying so. I just hate it. I'm like every sentence or like new paragraphs or pause. I'm like so, and I need to stop. It needs to end.
We all have tics. We all have. I once recorded a show for Radio 4 on umming, and they didn't take out any of the ums, you know, because they normally would. But it was fascinating when they didn't, that we all ummed, even though we were talking about umming. So first of all, it's okay to have some tics. That's fine. But as you say, where they're really repetitive tics, those are the ones that you do need to get a grip of and, if possible, remove. Now, the tip we talked about earlier on around closing your mouth at the end of a sentence is actually really quite a good way to get rid of tics, because our tics are really, I don't know if you can hear a dog barking in the background, that's not a tic. Our tics are normally us just thinking about the next thing we're going to say. So in speech, if you can just give yourself a full stop and be okay with a pause where you breathe, then you will eliminate most of the tics. And the other way to become aware of it is just to record yourself, and you start to hear them and you start to notice. And once you notice, you can take them out. People can do it within about 2 minutes once they're aware. Because I'm
really?
Yeah.
I'm still there are no videos of me on the internet. There are none. It didn't happen. They were never recorded. There are no videos out there. Denise tells me that this is terrible. Well, no, she was more supportive than that, but like my reading of it was that she thinks I should accept that there are videos on the internet and also watch them. Okay, so next question. Women and men often seem to be judged differently on how they speak. What are particular areas women should pay attention to as they prepare?
Ooh,
I'm going to say burning down the patriarchy.
That's so interesting. Okay, so I think I probably will answer this differently to other coaches on this question. So she said, here's my take on this. I think that when we start to worry about how we're perceived differently, I think we kind of make the problem bigger. So what I would say is, it's really important to show up as you, a honed, polished, confident version of you, but don't try and be anything that you're not. And I think that the speakers, male and female, these days in this TED age that really excel are, just to use a slightly cheesy word, really authentic. Now, that's not to say that women, we are fighting always unconscious bias. There's very little we can do about that. So I think you just have to, Denise Graveline puts this brilliantly actually. She says you might, and I think Kate, you were on the same course as I was when she spoke about it. She said, you know, the audience may respond differently to you than they would to a man, because we're not used to women speaking on the public stage. It's a fairly new thing, you know, given our history. But you shouldn't take that personally, and we should just stand up, speak, be confident in what we have to say and just let that be. And if an audience have questions or criticism, so be it. You can't be what you can't see. So the more we stand up to speak in a way that is really owned and authentic in ourselves, the more that sets up a pattern for the women who follow us. So I think, yeah, there is going to be unconscious bias, but we can't let that stop us. You just have to speak and be true to yourself. It's their problem if they have a problem.
Yeah. I called a guy out for objectifying a woman on stage recently, and he accused me of having no sense of humor. Yeah, which is just like, everybody knows I'm hilarious. That's not fair. Yeah, but I mean, I think the other thing is, like, I mean, guys like that, like, whatever, they're always, like, it's really not worth taking their criticism on board, or, like, their objectification on board. Like, he's a n'importe quoi, right? She's on stage, she's rocking it, she gave a great talk, and he's just in the audience commenting. His opinion doesn't really matter.
You've got to rise above it and have more grace than they have, I think.
Yeah.
There is some extreme things that happen. The stuff around Twitter feeds, and there are some things that happen that are extreme. Those should be dealt with differently. But I think we just have to assume that we are enough, and that the more of us that are out there, the more it will become the norm. And I mean, is there anything that I would say that women should think about? I think sometimes what you wear is really important, isn't it? And I think what I would say to women is, above all, be grounded. And high heels are so tempting because they make us feel tall and elegant. But I think as a voice coach, I would say it's really important to be grounded on stage, and you will feel so much safer on stage if you are grounded. So just avoid the Manolo Blahniks for a talk. It would be my own advice. I would also say that to men.
Yeah, no, definitely. As I've got more confident as a speaker, the size of my heels has come down. I used to only present in 4-inch heels, and now if packing constraints insist on it, I'll present in flats. But I do miss my but they weren't Manolos, they were LK Bennett wedges.
Well, hey,
yeah, they're fabulous though. Okay, so next question. Are we unconscious bias and men and women being judged differently? Do you think there might be different rules for speaking in public versus ongoing relationships? Are there differences in tactics and strategies there? This is such a great question because I have this reaction that it's yes, but pick it, Caroline.
That's really interesting. Yes, there is. I mean, the big difference is that when we stand up on a stage at a conference, and we kind of have more of a formal mask, don't we? Because we don't have that relationship with so many people in the audience. So we can just stand up and be, the speaker. Whereas as soon as you're in a room, like in a Logitech meeting with lots of people who already know you, there is no mask. So you have to really acknowledge the people in the room. It becomes much more a piece around influence. Whereas a big formal speech is much more, you are influencing, you are persuading them to listen to your argument, but you can be much more masked and armored in that space. So I think actually the meeting space becomes much more about really thinking about the different dynamics in the room and adjusting your speech and your ideas to meet the needs of the different people in the room. When we're at a conference, we can do that generally, but we can't hope to meet every individual's needs. So
it's so I feel like what you're saying is it's a difference between authority and influence.
Yes, there's a natural authority as a speaker on stage, and there's a much subtler soft power pull influence in meetings, especially where you're dealing with people who know you.
Cool. Great. Okay, next question. People keep asking questions. We haven't run out yet, but we've got plenty of time. So Olivia's question: what are some tips for quietening your body whilst presenting and for eliminating verbal tics, repetitive words or phrases, or is that part of the rehearsal process you mentioned? Oh, and Olivia also mentioned she's in a room with 15 Logitech women, so hello ladies, thanks for joining us.
So the trick to quietening your body is what you do before you speak. So, you know, my background is theatre, and when you train actors, there are probably people on the Hangout who have trained as actors or have done some acting. Actors have what is called the half. Now, what the half is half an hour before they go on stage, where they do a bit of yoga, they maybe do a voice warm-up, they might just sit really quietly and focus. But what is happening in that half hour is that they are getting their mind and body really quiet and centered. And that calm state is what shows up when you walk out on stage or when you walk into that meeting. So my tip is, book a meeting with yourself before important meetings and get calm and quiet. And if you've got a big talk or if you've got any kind of conference speech, you know, really manage your diary the day of the speech so that you can show up really calm. On a more long-term practice, because this is about practice, you will never have that calm unless you've embedded it into the unconscious. And ways to embed that kind of quiet, calm state are, you know, Alexander technique is brilliant, Pilates is really good, yoga, you know, Qigong, all of those kind of mind-body practices will make you a calmer, better speaker. My personal thing is Alexander technique. It's made all the difference to me. So
I'm actually not familiar with that. Can you explain a bit what is the Alexander technique?
So Alexander was he was an actor who ended up doing recitation, and he kept losing his voice and he couldn't work out why, and he started to realize that he had certain tics, physical tics, that were really putting a lot of stress on his larynx, his voice. So he created this whole system which is about mind-body awareness, and really it's about posture and how we move. And as you become more aware of how you move and how you breathe, it feeds into how you speak. And it's made me a lot calmer and more aware on stage. There are teachers all over the world, so it's always just worth Googling alexandertechnique.net and you'll find teachers there's always teachers, wherever there are actors, there are always Alexander teachers.
That's a cool tip. I'm always looking for ways to make me more peaceful. I did a lot of yoga when I was in Denver, and I felt very calm. And then, you know, by the time I got to New York, it had totally gone. Okay, next question. These have been great about practice, but how do you handle when you are not expecting to present and are put on the spot?
Great question, because it happens, doesn't it? It really does.
Olivia has a bunch of great questions. Is this from all the different Logitech women in the room, maybe, or just Olivia? Either way, thank you so much. Keep asking.
So when I wrote the book, I went off and I interviewed a number of people about this kind of thing. And one of the people I interviewed he's the business reporter on BBC Radio 4 Today, which is kind of the UK's big kind of business show in the morning. And he said that when he's interviewing people, he gets all the big kind of London city types talking to him. And he says what they do really well is when he asks a question and it's thrown them, they say, Simon, 2 things, firstly and secondly. And he said the thing about that is it gives them time to think, it sets out their stall, and then I can't interrupt them either because they can say, Simon, I'm only halfway through point 1, if you would let me continue. So that structure of there are 3 things I want to say in answer to that question, even as you're going, oh my God, what are the 3 things? You then visualize the 3 things that you're going to talk about and you commit to talking about those 2 or 3 things. There might be hundreds of other things you could say on the subject, but what they're actually looking for is you to be clear and concise in your thinking and able to speak clearly and concisely as you answer it. So it's much better to commit to something simple and deliver that structure than to go on and on, which is what people do. They just ramble. So commit, speak, and then zip it.
I think that's a great tip. I started taking notes at talks, and it allowed me to differentiate between the people who speak very well but in fact have no content, and also the people who like maybe don't necessarily have a particularly great structure to what they're saying but are making a bunch of great points.
And structure is compelling, isn't it? When someone has an ordered argument, it's so easy to follow and you remember it. And that rule of three is such a goodie. I mean, it's so not new. It's thousands of years old. But the rule of three will really get you out of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I'm giving a talk tomorrow, and I built it on a 3-act play structure with an owl motif.
Oh, an owl.
Like lots of different owls.
Oh, wow. Love it.
I'm pretty excited. The owls are very beautiful as well. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like the owls are important, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so next, say.
I'd like to see it. Yeah, send me the owls.
The owls are great because I've been trying something lately where I have somebody else make my slides, which actually really highlights like any place where I haven't, like normally like I build my talk like a good UI, I build it on a grid. But having somebody else makes my slides really shows when I've been a little bit sloppy about my grid, and I've just like put extra things in there. Also, she's much more like visually talented than I am, so like she found some exceptional owls, and also I just kind of hate making slides, so I think it's like like delegating it has been this really interesting thing that I'm definitely going to blog about soon.
I think there's really something in that when we have slides, they need to be visually really beautiful now. I think, and if they're not, I think it's better to cut them. So I think having someone design your slides is a really good idea. I think it also inspires you as a speaker, doesn't it?
Oh, oops. I'm actually going to try a new thing for my next talk. I'm going to do a handwritten, like hand-drawn slides.
Oh,
so they're not going to be beautiful, but they're going to be...
I like that. That sounds
my
fun.
Style. Yeah. So
yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I used to go to the Noun project to get icons and put them in. But I started sketchnoting and do a lot of handwritten stuff now. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll try that on my slides. But a lot of time I actually just go and look at the icon and hand drawn it. I just make a copy of it to make it my style. We'll see how that goes.
I think that's a really lovely idea. I think things that are creative and kind of feel handmade actually that feels very now. Whereas a big deck of PowerPoint slides with lots of bullet points feels very 90s.
Right. Yeah. No bullet points.
No. just owls.
Owls are the way forward, definitely.
Yeah. No. My last talk, there was a raccoon that featured heavily, but everybody loves the raccoon now. Yeah, and I think one of the things that I find helpful is that it's like a second lens onto my content. You know, so rather than like I have my idea of what I'm talking about, and I write what I think I'm going to say, and then I make slides that I think reflect that. When I hand over to someone else, like one, it's good for my control freaky nature to just like let go. But two, what I get back is not what I would put together. It's this different lens on kind of my content. So I'm hoping it like adds an extra dimension to my talk.
I think that's right, and I think these days, the more we were talking a bit about props, the more I get someone to design some cool props and create beautiful slides, the more it inspires me. So it's not for me. It's not just an extra lens. It's a kind of extra energy somehow. It feels more like a team effort, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm finding it really good so far, so I'll hopefully keep doing it and see how that goes. And like, have I told you how great these owls are? I'll tweet you some pictures tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, let's stop talking about owls. Next question from Catherine Wu. Hi, Catherine. Catherine's like, she always dials into our webinars, so it's great to see that she's here. How do I get to speak in a meeting when it's hard to get a word in without interrupting? Oh my God, yes, I have been in these meetings too. Caroline, tell us how.
Great question. So the problem that I hear particularly women, but not exclusively, men as well, is that you kind of hear the meeting going and going and going, and you have something to say, and like, where do I get this in? And then the meeting's going on, and it's moved on from your content, and everybody's speaking really loud, and you try and say something, but your voice isn't loud enough, and it's just this So I think the first rule is get something in early. You know, it's much better to speak up early on, because once you've got your voice in the room, you already feel more part of that dialogue. The next thing to say is that redundancy in meetings is what everybody really hates. It's when somebody says something that is kind of a repetition of something that's already been said, and they haven't really been listening, and it's just everybody goes, oh, a waste of time. So it's really important not to be redundant. And what that means is, if you want to say something really useful, listen really intently. And when you hear anything that is a natural segue to what you want to say, thank the speaker who's just said it. So if you say, thank you, Sean, he's going to stop, right? Because you just thanked him. That's a really great point. And what I want to add to that is this. So first of all, you've thanked him, which is going to make him feel good. You've acknowledged what he just said, which means you're listening. And then you're bridging with and, not but. Very important, no buts, always an and, to what you want to say. So he can't really interrupt you. He's got to listen. So that's my 3-step strategy to interrupting. Sure.
That is a cunning trick. I will use it next time I'm in a meeting with a man. So quick segue back to owls. Cara wants to know if my owl talk will be available for live streaming. Cara, there are no videos of me on the internet. There are none. Absolutely none. I will send you an owl picture.
There's something kind of poetic in the fact that she's on a flight. I don't know.
And I'm talking about owls, yeah. I told them I was going to talk about something else, but it's really about owls. Okay, so next question. You talk about being in a calm state, but I've also heard recommendations about getting pumped up before a talk to try and bring high energy and enthusiasm. Do those conflict?
Great question. Okay, so this takes us back to the half. So you're always going to be adrenal when you walk out on stage, because an audience staring at you is a natural trigger to adrenaline, because they're looking at you, they're a potential threat. So there is the kind of Tony Robbins school of motivational speaking where people get really pumped, and that would work if you were someone who was kind of really catatonic generally as a person, or super cool about speaking. But I think for 90% of people, you know, I'm becoming quite an experienced speaker, and I still always get really nervous. So for me, I trust that the adrenaline is already spiking, and what my strategy has to be is to find a kind of calm. Having said that, where you do need energy is physically. So to do something like do yoga, go for a run, go for a swim, anything that gets the endorphins pumping and gets you grounded and present, that is going to be a really good thing. So I would always do something physical, even if it's half an hour of yoga on the morning of a talk, because if I'm in my body, I speak much better. That's true for a meeting. It's also true for a teleconference, because if you're in your body, your voice is going to be more connected as well.
Right, that's so great. I moderated my first panel on Monday, and normally I get up on stage and it's like the worst is over, like it's just happening now, there's nothing I can do, and I just like give into it. But you know, when you're moderating a panel, like, one, I've never worked so hard to be invisible, but you know, two, I like just spent a lot of time just sitting there in silence, and then I was like, wow, I'm freaking out. You know, because like I wasn't focusing on my delivery. I actually got to like pay attention to how I felt, and it was not good.
So
okay.
don't people.
Panels are hard. The first time I went on a panel, when my fellow panelists were speaking, and I was like, where do I look now? Because I'm not talking. Yeah. People are looking at him. What do I do? Turns out it's okay to just look at the person who's speaking. Nobody looking at me anyway, but I feel very uncomfortable just sitting there and not speaking and being looked at.
It's a really underrated art, isn't it? I think that a good panel host, there's a lot going on. There's a kind of editor, there's a performer, there's someone who listens really intently. There's a lot there. So I definitely prep for panels is a good piece of advice.
I worked so hard for mine, but I think my biggest act of brilliance was I told all my panelists to read Denise's book. So
Yes.
at the end of it, they said, Kate made us read this book, and we realized this was a lot of work, and then they bought me a present. So that was great, because they got me a little raccoon. It's adorable. And a blanket, and then some more raccoons. Sorry?
Everyone should read Denise's book on panels, actually. It's true.
It is really good, but this is my tip as a moderator. If you want your panelists to appreciate you, make them read Denise's book as well. Okay, so Olivia says that all the women at Logitech are taking over her laptop. So awesome, keep going, keep with the questions. Okay, so how do you reconcile maintaining your own voice and vocal style whilst working towards a more confident presentation? And that's from Elaine. Thanks, Elaine.
Oh, great question. These are great questions. Awesome. So, okay, so this is right in my zone as a voice coach. It's all about finding your own voice. So if something feels not you, don't do it. But that's not to say it's like, I mean, I think learning to speak is a bit like learning to drive, in the sense that when you first get in a car, you go, oh my God, gears, clutch, how on earth am I going to ever do this? And then you practice it for a bit, and suddenly it becomes really natural. Speaking is a bit the same. Things like pausing, projecting, centering your voice, using different vocal tones, all of that stuff can feel a bit new when you do it at first. But if you practice, the aim is that it just becomes you. It just becomes part of you. And good speakers are always really themselves. So work on your vocal style. It's good to go and see a voice coach. There are always voice coaches, anywhere there are actors. If you're in a big city, a town where there's a drama school, there will be a voice coach. Go see someone for a couple of sessions. Learn what they teach you, practice it like you would learning to drive, and then when you get out on stage or into a meeting, don't think about it, just be you, and trust that the skills that you've practiced will be there in the muscle. And the rule is, if it doesn't feel like you, don't do it. I hope that helps.
That is a great rule. So we got a question about Denise's book. What is Denise's book? It's called The Eloquent Woman's Guide to Moderating Panels, and it is fantastic. And also, nobody asked to see this, but I know you want to, so here's the queue.
That's great. There's actually a showcase panel besides the Q&A panel that I've been adding links to what we've been talking about. So I just added the link to Denise's book. Hopefully that works. If not, maybe we can send an email after the hangout to everybody who registered with the links.
Yeah, Denise knows a huge amount about all of that, so she is so worth reading.
She's fantastic. Okay, next question, and we're running a little low on time, so we're going to be a little bit snappy with the last questions just so we can get through as many as possible. Okay, so how do you calm your voice and avoid trembling during a speech?
Ooh,
and that's from Milika. Thanks, Milika.
So the reason that the voice shakes is adrenaline. You'll all have heard of the fight or flight response, which is the body's response to a threat. It either thinks, I've got to punch these people, I've got to hide, or I've got to run away. And when that happens, the body is flooded with adrenaline. And it's the adrenaline that makes our breathing high and shallow, makes our heartbeat speed up, and it makes the voice shaky. So if your voice is starting to shake, it's that water tip. You just need to give yourself a moment. You need to stop, breathe diaphragmatically, calm your state, walk across the stage, grab a glass, drink, then come back and remember that rule about speaking in nice, short thoughts, because if you breathe deeply and diaphragmatically, your voice will come back under control. As soon as we stop breathing diaphragmatically, that's when the trouble really starts. So again, it's well worth committing to a couple of sessions with a voice coach, either singing or speaking, who can teach you how to breathe and speak properly, diaphragmatically.
Cool. Well, I would have thought swimming would also help.
Yes, swimming is interesting. It really does teach you to breathe. It also takes you quite a lot into your shoulders. Maybe that's just me. So I think that something like Alexander technique or Qigong, anything that's really helping you relax would be also a good thing to do. But anything that gets you into your body and connecting breath is going to help.
That's great. All right, next question. What power posture work with a small audience known to be verbally aggressive, constantly interrupting, challenging any ideas, etc.? Are closed body postures still a no-no, even with those audiences?
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. So this is about an actor's idea of status. And status is the idea that we play our power, which is what you're talking about there. Where you've got a room full of aggressive, competing people, what you don't want to do is get adrenal. So you want to look, there's a rule which says that the most powerful person in the room has the most relaxed breathing pattern. So yes, you want to sit up strong and straight, and don't, that very female thing of kind of wanting to close off and cross our legs and kind of hide. What that does is it makes our voice a bit small, and as soon as we do that, we lose the game in that kind of room. So you've got to sit up, be relaxed, don't get adrenally triggered, make sure your voice is relaxed and powerful, project your voice to the back of the room, fill the room, but don't shout, and keep relaxed. And then crucially, hook into the common purpose. If you can find a purpose that unites all of those people in the room, rather than competing with each other and getting aggressive, you're going to start to hook them into a conversation where everybody's working together towards something. And if you have a nice relaxed state as you're doing that, you will come out as far the most influential person, because most people in the room don't want to be aggressive competing. It's just not fun. So if you can find a way to hook into that situation and influence it, people are going to want to go along with you. But it does take a bit of bottle. And the main thing is, don't take it personally. Don't take the criticism, the aggression personally, because it rarely is. It is sometimes, but, take it with a pinch of salt.
Great. I have also heard that it is possible to find a job in the tech industry where your colleagues don't constantly undermine you. It is the dream that we all search for. Okay, so next question. I'm pretty excited about this one. How do you approach having to contradict something another person said in a large meeting? For instance, I'm presenting to execs and one of them questions my process or data. How do you manage that without backing down, being confident, with respect?
Okay, the first thing that everybody has to do later on is go and look at a strategy from a chap called Michael Grinder, Grinder, and it's called How Not to Get Shot. And it is perfect for this kind of situation. In a nutshell, what it says is you have to separate yourself from the problem. So when someone criticizes something that you've said, it can feel like they are criticizing you. And as soon as we take on that criticism, we make ourselves the problem. So what you have to do is have the data in front of you, either on paper or on a deck. So if you've got a screen behind you, gesture to the screen. If you've got paper in front of you, find some data that you can refer to, and make sure that you create a problem space that is out there. So say, we're talking about Sean, I don't know why. So if, say, Sean says, the figures are out, that doesn't look right. Say, thanks, Sean, that's an interesting point. Let's just look at what we've got here on the screen so we can see that we've got X, Y, Z. And so what you're saying is that you think X, Y, Z. You're making then his criticism outside you. And then you can both look at what he's saying objectively, rather than going, okay, so you don't like that data, right, okay, I'll have a look. And suddenly you're the problem. Get the problem out there and talk about it objectively, and together you find the solution. So let's look at that together. What would you like us to do differently? Rather than, okay, so the rule is how not to get shot, separate yourself from the problem and go visual. Does that make sense?
That's such a great tip. Kind of externalize it by having it literally outside projected, and you can point it and say, hey, look, this is what we're discussing, not this.
Exactly. And if you want more detail on that, it's Michael Grinder, How Not to Get Shot, and there's loads more in terms of voice tone and how you gesture. So it's really well worth a look.
I am excited to read is it a book?
He is the brother of John Grinder, who founded NLP, and there is a book called Charisma, The Art of Relationships. I don't think How Not to Get Shot is on there, but I think if you Google How Not to Get Shot Michael Grinder, a PDF comes up that how to do it.
Oh, amazing. I will add it to my reading list. Okay, so we're technically out of time, but we have one question left, and it's Catherine, so I think we should sneak it in. And so Catherine's question is, can you talk a bit about modifying your pitch, specifically lowering it? I've been told a lower pitch makes me sound more authoritative, but it's distracting to think about it actively whilst also delivering content. Can I just say, I wish we would stop trying to fix women.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes me so angry. Like, the pitch of your voice, like, I've also been told that basically I had a high-pitched British accent, and I have no idea what to do about that, right? Like, it's just not, I don't think it's helpful feedback. I think it's personal, but, Caroline, maybe you have a different take.
So I'm totally with you on the not fixing women, and I think that men also do get this feedback sometimes, and what I hear in that as a voice coach is actually it's about finding the center of your voice. So we think in our culture that we speak from the throat, and actually where we speak from is the diaphragm, is the gut. So a really simple thing to do is just, if everybody who's listening on the call wants to do something slightly silly, if you'll just tap, if you find your bra strap, or if you're a chap, just imagine, and then just tap below your bra strap and just go, very silly thing to do, but what you feel, and you feel it if you jump around as well, but I'm not going to get people to do that, is that your voice is kind of coming from your tummy. And if your voice is coming from your tummy, it has a natural power that is all you. When a baby, when my 4.5-year-old speaks, she speaks from her tummy. She's not speaking from her throat. So it's something that we did when we were little, that school somehow untaught us. And so we end up at work kind of speaking in our throats, and that creates a really different energy. So just find the voice in your gut and practice it. Here's what I want people to do. I want you to sing at home, put on some really belly singing, I don't know, some Marvin Gaye or something, Barry White, and sing along to it and just let your voice really resonate. And then when you get into meetings, don't think about it. You're absolutely right. You don't want to be thinking about it. But if you've warmed it up, it will be much more there for you. So warm up your voice and it will show up with more power.
That's a really nice tip. And it's a great one to end on. So Cara just wants to know, where does Sean work? Sean works at a large Bay Area tech company. And that's going to be it from us. Thank you, everyone who dialed in. Thank you so much, Logitech, for sponsoring. And most of all, thank you so much to Caroline for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. We super appreciate it.
Thanks, such great questions. I love the questions, so thank you for asking them. Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. All right then. Bye. So I'm going to stop broadcasting, but Caroline, stay on. All right?